Hey everybody, this is my 55-gallon Gourami tank, and I got in there recently and did a pretty significant water change which removed a lot of tannin, and that brightened up the tank. But I also removed a lot of floating water sprite, and that has let a ton of light into the tank. I also removed a little bit of the Java fern on the left, and even a little bit of the Java windelov and that big mass you can see there on the right where the Siamese algae eater is working away. So I think what I want to do today is put some more floating plants back in the tank, and I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be just yet. It's going to be water sprite, but I'm not sure where I'm going to get it, I suppose is what I should be saying. I've got some smaller plants floating in a few of my other tanks, but I've got some large specimens of water sprite sitting in an old tank that is in the shower in my bathroom down here, and it's been long time since I've done anything in that tank, and so it's pretty scary looking. But it does have a bunch of big water sprite plants growing out of it, so I'm not sure what I will encounter when I go pulling them out of there. At the very least, it's going to have algae, cyanobacteria, crud, duckweed, who knows. Like I said, it's some pretty scary looking stuff in that old abandoned tank that's been sitting in there. But I've got some big chunks of water sprite, and so I think I'm going to go and see what I can do about finding some of that. If I find anything else in there that might be interesting in this tank, we'll see if we can't add that as well. So we're going to call this a simple before and after. Probably not going to be a big deal, but there's your before and there's your after. So as I suspected, not a huge difference in the amount of light in the tank or anything else. I was hoping the floating water sprite there would float down in the water and the roots would hang a little more than they are, but usually when you swap it from one tank to the next, it just lays over on its side and does that. And what's going to happen is over time this water sprite will grow out and those roots will begin growing downwards, and the vegetation, the fronds if you will start growing outwards from that rosette or that center area, I guess you could call it, where that root mass starts, and we'll start getting some normal looking spread across the surface of the water and some roots hanging down. So I did shoot a few seconds of video of what this looked like before it went in the tank, so we'll go ahead and have a look at that right now. So I did my best to get all of the duckweed and everything out of it. I'm not too concerned about things like algae or cyanobacteria. It's not like I don't have that in my tanks already or it wouldn't get in there. The duckweed can be problematic if you get that in a tank. I don't know if the gouramis in this tank would eat the duckweed or not. So we'll probably find out, because the likelihood of me getting all the duckweed out of there is pretty slim. So for the astute of you, you might have noticed this little tuft of green over here. That was the other thing I did. I think that is a Red Tiger Lotus, but I'm not 100% sure at this point, and I will explain why in just a moment. But first, let's have a look at what this looked like before it went in the tank. So you could see it looked more like a bulb than a rhizome, and where we got it was from over here in my 125. And if you'll notice there, I've got that Red Tiger Lotus, and one of the stalks came up, and in addition to all of this kind of stuff, one of them used to have what we were just looking at on the end of it. Instead of one of these pads, it basically had that little ball, that little bulb, and then little green vegetation growing off of it. So I was going to leave it on there and let it grow for as long as I could, or until I needed it. And since today I decided I needed it, I went in there to get it out. And when I went to get it out, it was just free floating. It was not attached to any of the stalks in here. So now there's a tiny little question in my mind whether or not that really was attached to that or not. And maybe it was something like that that got uprooted and was just floating around in the tank, and maybe I just planted some Crypt in there. I don't know. So I think I planted some Red Tiger Lotus in there, but I may have just planted some Crypt. I'm not sure 100% on that. So anyway you slice it, we're going to find out one way or the other. And since we're standing here, we might as well come over and have a look and see if anything exciting is happening. I can see one crayfish right there. I can see another crayfish sticking his little face out right there. And that is all I see at the moment. I really need to get in here and do a little bit of wiping that glass down as well. So I'm going to say goodbye here and leave you with the last look at this tank rather than the one we started with. Not really much going on in the fish room today, but I did throw those plants in there, so I figured we would get a little bit of video of that. And again, I'm going to leave you here with the last look at my 40-gallon native tank. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you're subscribed. You never know what you're going to get with me. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.